Side 2 begins with Turn It On Again, the fourth part and midpoint of the Duke suite and the album overall, as well as its lead single. And as you may guess and imagine why this was picked as such. It has a catchy beat and a hummable hook, which is ironic when you realize this doesn't exactly follow the standard 4/4 beat rhythm, but rather alternate between 6/4, 7/4, or even 3/4, 13/4, or 13/8. And with such time signatures like those, you'd think that no one would be able to dance or tap their feet along to a song like this, and yet you still can. The lyrics themselves are almost just as weird too, being about the Duke character Albert watching so much telly, whatever TV channel or program he could find, so much so to the point he starts seeing the characters as real people, and even wishes they could be his friends. Kind of relevant, surprisingly enough, if you think about it. All I need is a TV show, that and the radio. Down on my luck again, down on my luck again. And if I can't have either, at least I still have my computer and smartphone. I can show you some of the people in my life. Like that quirky radio demon, that essential little AI with a pair of teeth for a head, or even that cat with a tendency for fiddles and whiskey. It's driving me mad, just another way of passing the day. The first way I usually have is having to play shadow puppets with this lad I know. And he can't even recognize when I'm doing a rabbit. I get so lonely when she's not there. I mean, what's my life without my waifu? You're just another face that I know from a TV show. I have known you for so very long, I feel you like a friend. Well, just a friend at that, 'cause I don't want to know what you do in your spare time. Can't you do anything for me? Can I touch you for a while? Case in point. Can I meet you on another day and we will fly away? Especially if your dad doesn't happen to be Liam Neeson as a CIA officer. Now, some people might think it'd be weird for the song to actually be part of the Duke suite, let alone the midpoint. But to be fair, Willow Farm apparently wasn't written initially for Supper's Ready, and yet that fit in just fine. But regardless, and I digress, Turn It On Again still works well, not only as a standalone individual song, but also as the midpoint of the overall Duke album. The money or have a cigar of Colin's Zero Genesis, if you will. Even the 2007 reunion tour and associated greatest hits album were named after the song. And if that doesn't prove the staying power of this track, I don't know what is. Next, we get to Alone Tonight, the other track written entirely by Mike Rutherford. While not as grandiose as Man of Our Times, this song's pretty still fine on its own. Its warped guitar opening is quite similar to the synths of Heat Haze, and it can also fit in just as much a part of the overall Duke narrative. Its lyrics obviously deal with loneliness, of course, so this track could be interpreted as Albert the Duke eventually realizing that all the characters he sees on TV are just that, fictional characters he's incapable of interacting with. Coming to grips with the reality of that, on top of being separated from the Duchess, he really does have no one to spend time and pass the day with, hence being alone again tonight. So he tries to change. He begs and pleads for someone to help him reach the other side. The other side of what exactly is something that's not exactly or clearly stated, but is still open to individual interpretation. Alone Tonight may be one of the more filler tracks on the album, but it does still serve as a slightly more slow breather after the jumpy energy of Turn It On Again. Then we reach the cul-de-sac with the song Cul-de-sac. The other song is written entirely by Tony Banks. Cul-de-sac. Isn't that where the characters of Ed, Edd and Eddy live? In fact, does anyone even remember that show? Anyways, it does certainly feel like a typical Genesis song that Tony would write. Emphasis on keyboards, enigmatic lyrics, and so on. Similar to Undertow, this too starts off with Phil immediately singing over Tony's synth. Wake up, this is the time you've waited for. That new Avengers movie is finally coming out soon. Then it soon builds into this pre-fanfare before we get the bulk of the lyrics, with Phil singing second person, singing to us about our supposed pride and arrogance, how we thought we could or would rule this world forever, only to be on our way out and cut off our prime. Again, kind of relevant if you think about it. An army of thousands, believed to be strong, marching on towards the light from their region of night, only to be hit by a foe so deadly they don't even know it's there, and they're unable to escape, not even one. The armies of man having hit a dead end, a cul-de-sac if you will, and bested by the forces of nature. Again, like the song before it, cul-de-sac could be easily brushed off as filler, but I think it works fine as a demonstration of Tony Banks' talents not only as a keyboardist, but also a songwriter as well. Afterwards, we have Please Don't Ask, the other track written entirely by Phil Collins, and like with Misunderstanding, this too originated in the demos of what would become Phil's debut album, Face Value. In fact, if you were to listen to this song back to back with any cut from that album, it does seem to fit in quite well, especially lyric-wise and music-wise, as well as having that sort of dour tone and mood. The ones I would compare this to specifically would be The Roof is Leaking, You Know What I Mean, and If Leaving Me Is Easy. I don't exactly know if it's either Phil played that synth piano here in the final version or Tony as usual, but if so, Tony does a good job at replicating and emulating Phil's style and mood. Though funny enough though, according to the interview on Melody Maker, Phil played all his demos to Mike and Tony, and that included In the Air Tonight. That one was apparently turned down due to it being too simple for the group, only for Tony to openly regret such a decision years later. If there was an alternate universe out there where In the Air Tonight was a Genesis song, I want to visit that. I want to take a visit to that universe. I don't care if I have to borrow Big Jack Films' new FDT in order to do so. Presumably he has already built a new one already, that is. Anyways, the lyrics are very much the kind you expect from early 80s Phil Collins, dealing with heartbreak and the denial of it. Remembering how easy it was to be able to say, I love you, whilst realizing how times easily change and wondering if you can still say so, and mean it. But it's always worth a try. And to anyone who thinks that all Collins-era Genesis songs are just solo Collins songs, all in but name, maybe this case, along with Misunderstanding and Man in the Corner, probably may as well fit the bill. But that brings us to the penultimate piece in both the Duke Suite and the album, Duke's Travels. Clocking over 8 minutes, this mostly instrumental piece is definitely the longest track on the album, and if a length like that isn't prog enough for you, then the music itself should. Tony's keyboards, Mike's guitars, and Phil's drums come together to make this tremendous climax that does seem to harken back to the days of Lamb Slides Down on Broadway and Trick of the Tail. It segues smoothly as well from a minute or two of a melody or hook to the next. And it does sound like what the title says. The Albert Duke character travelling from place to place, hoping to find his place in the world. Now I say it's mostly instrumental because near the end, we get a reprise of the guide vocal music and lyrics. Could it be the same guiding spirit returning, or even a new guiding spirit that has helped Albert throughout most of this album? There are at least a few things this could be interpreted. A few different ways. Maybe it's the same guide who left the Duchess behind and is now parting ways with the Duke this time as well. It's almost bittersweet in a way. And so, The Duke Suite and album ends with, well, Duke's End. Pretty much a reprise and bookend to the beginning of Behind the Lines. And there's even a brief of the Turn It On Again melody/hook. This could likely mean the Duke himself has finally ended up right where he has started in the beginning, back to his old habits as usual. Always found himself a new beginning, a fresh start, a new life, a new leaf to turn over. Whatever the case, the track and album altogether goes back in goes out on this just mighty and triumphant note, or at least the illusion of triumph perhaps. And with that, this album is pretty good. Sure, it's not Foxtrot, or Selling England by the Pound, or The Lamb, or even Trick of the Tail, but being a bit different doesn't automatically make it bad. It's apparent with this album that Genesis was certainly starting to tackle some modern 80s pop elements that would become popular in that decade, while still maintaining some of that progressive rock style they had mastered in the 70s. The tracks that make up the Duke Suite do demonstrate that to a T. And even beside that, some of the other individual tracks have their moments too. While Please Don't Ask and Misunderstanding definitely feel like solo Phil Collins songs, Cul-de-sac and Man of Our Times are definitely epic highlights in my opinion. I just wish In the Air Tonight was included in this roster. Maybe if they switched it out with Please Don't Dance or something. I don't know. Overall in all, Genesis' Duke is an interesting piece in the discography of the Genesis band, and it's certainly worth checking out and turning on again. Next time, we begin the new year proper with yet another Genesis album. One much more obscure and made 10 years prior to Duke, before Phil Collins even became a member.